Now let's talk a little bit about Old English. Old English is made with two sets of lines indicating lowercase case letters. Now, there's a real easy system to Old English. It looks pretty confusing when you first look at it, but if we'll add another line here, and one equaling that distance here, one equaling that distance here. This is where the little template with the slots comes in handy. You've got your template is a little metal device. It's got a slot about that wide, mirror slot about that wide. And I mean, this is way larger than what the template is, but you can use these slots for various. All you got to do is double this slot for your capital letters, and if you want letters the lowercase the letters to be this size, and just double it or triple it, or you can use this line, or this line, and this line, or this line and this line, or this line and this line, or this line and this line. So you've got a variety of widths there that you've established, and you can use those throughout, and you've got a constant measure. And if you don't use that, what you'll have to do is you'll have to either get you a piece of paper, and you'll have to go up here like this. Say you want another sentence down here. You'll have to mark that piece of paper off. Down here, in order to get this the same size, mark off your index lines. Well, those are pretty uniform. We have a little bit of this is the problem they run into. So you've got just a little bit of a flaw here and there. It's not too noticeable. But okay, in the case of Old English, we'll start out with, say the letter B, for instance, and we'll do it slanted. There's 2 or 3 versions of Old English actually, the pen version and the engraver version. I'm doing the pen version. You can execute it either way successfully. You can use a script or a flat to do the pen version, or you can use liners and flats to do the engraver version. Okay, that's the pen version. These lines are kind of arcing instead of being squared off or anything. And the reason I call it the pen version is because in the old days, and the calligraphers use this method, is you've got a pen that's got a flat tip on it. And if you take that tip and you pull it along sideways, it makes a thin line. As you pull it down, it makes a wide line. I can't indicate that very well with this pen, but you might be able to see it some. It's got extremely wide point, and that's the pen version of Old English. You got a thin line, and then you take it. one stroke of pen, you can make the Old English lettering the way it's supposed to look. Of course, this area would probably be much wider with one stroke than what I can indicate with this little pen here. Be more like that. All the trouble drawing all of the lines. Okay. Old English has a system, and it has a system of diagonal lines where, like, you have the letter A, for instance. Got a diagonal line, vertical line, diagonal line. I drew this to indicate the diagonal line. Diagonal line, vertical line. Here's an A. So this is a system of diagonals. And all the diagonals that are in it going that direction are all parallel. All the diagonals that are going this way are all parallel. So what we have here is a system of diagonal parallel line. Each letter is done that way. If we lay out two lines here, we can judge the length of those diagonals by the distance these between these lines. Like an M for an N or an M. Go down to that line. Start down vertically. These parallels, these lines are parallel, these lines are parallel. And of course your spacing is just as important here. The distance between and here must match in all of your letters. Say if you've got an O over here, for instance. These lines, again, are all parallel. Each letter. There's times when you'll have to make a slightly wider letter. But these still will maintain the same parallel as the letter before. Old English is a fairly easy style to do. It looks complicated, but the capitals are maybe a little complicated because the lowercase letters are snapped. They're just, you just go down the row and just make those parallels. Of course, you have to understand how each letter is constructed because there are some confusing things in the Old English alphabet, primarily in the capital letters. The C, for instance. Looks something like that. The only difference in the C and the G is come around like that. Sometimes you'll find two little lines right in here. That again, that's kind of an optional thing. Doesn't have to be. And the M and the W are very confusing. You'll have a that's the M. And that's a W. And they look very similar. A lot of times people can't tell them apart. You have to understand them to be able to tell them apart. This is open up here at the top. It's closed right here. It's open down at the bottom. That's the difference. You have to understand them to know how to draw them. Now, Old English monograms are fairly easy to do also. Same thing applies to them that applies to any other style of lettering, that is balance and rhythm. Okay, let's have a letter B. Look something like that. The only difference in the C and the G is come around like that. Sometimes you'll find two little lines right in here. That again, that's kind of an optional thing. Doesn't have to be. And the M and the W are very confusing. You'll have a that's the M. And that's the W. And they look very similar. A lot of times people can't tell them apart. You have to understand them to be able to tell them apart. This is open up here at the top. It's closed right here. It's open down at the bottom. That's the difference. You have to understand them to know how to draw them. Now, Old English monograms are fairly easy to do also. Same thing applies to them that applies to any other style of lettering, that is balance and rhythm. Okay, let's have a letter B. Old English monogram. If you look at all of these parallel, these diagonal lines, they all match up throughout the whole monogram. If they don't, something's wrong. And the same token, all the diagonal lines going this way match up. If you've done everything right, it all belongs together. Created a little problem right in here. I didn't allow quite enough, just a little bit too much of a hole right in there. And of course we get back and we look and we're laying it out and see if we've got a problem like that, and if we do, we find a way to cure it. Sometimes we can lengthen this over here just a little bit. really, sometimes looking at it in the mirror helps too. You'll take your mirror and hold it up there and look at it backwards in a mirror. The obvious flaws, they'll just pop right out at you.